You call it negative. Yeah, but look, it can just be called shitty, right? Not pleasant. Because negative almost feels immediately like it's something that we want to try and avoid, and we never get the lesson if we don't sit and get the lesson. Here's the question. These are ones I've been sent through, so I've got them on my screen here. I'm going to look across. How do you change or prevent a negative recurring feeling from re-emerging? Well, I'll tell you what you don't do, and that is try and ignore it. And ignore it, and ignore it, and ignore it. Because guess what? Every time you ignore it, you sweep it under the rug, and then you sweep it under the rug, and then you sweep it under the rug, and it keeps getting higher and higher, and sooner or later you're going to walk straight into that fucking thing, and it's going to shit all over your life. So you turn and face it. You sit and experience the thing that is there to feel. But what we need to do is separate some of the terminology that's happening here. How do I change or prevent a negative recurring feeling? So don't avoid it, feel it, from re-emerging. So actually what I think is going on here is the person, potentially, is reliving an event, the belief about that event, and the subsequent or consequence emotion. So there's the thing that happened, there's what we think about what happened, and the beliefs and stories that we create about it, and then the consequences, the emotion that comes with that, and how you act in response to that. So what is likely necessary for this person? Let's say the example is they were told as a kid that when they didn't succeed, or when they didn't live to their or their parents' perhaps expectations, that they were a failure and they could do better. And so whenever they aren't perfect right now, because they've created a belief that I need to be perfect in order to be loved, whenever they don't succeed, whenever they aren't completely perfect or meet their potentially incredibly high and unrealistic expectations, they're a failure. And so that takes them back to this old recurring feeling of I'm a failure, and whatever might come with that, the actual feeling. So that's the first part. Don't ignore those. Sit and feel them, because in the experience of them, and the processing of them, is the messages. Even though they might feel shitty. You call it negative. Yeah, but look, it can just be called shitty, right? Not pleasant. Because negative almost feels immediately like it's something that we want to try and avoid, and we never get the lesson if we don't sit and get the lesson. So what's potentially needing to happen there is, this takes me back to that event and what I created as a belief and perhaps story about myself in relation to that event. So let's say it was your parent saying that you could do better, you're a failure. That doesn't mean that you are a failure. It means that you took it on board as truth. Of course you did. That makes absolute sense. But what it really speaks to now is, shitty fucking parenting. What the fuck is that about? No thanks. So you get to look at it through your lens now as a rational adult, and the lens of the person who experienced it, which was, holy shit, that hurt a lot. What I needed was unconditional love. What I needed was to be told that it doesn't matter about how I perform in life, I'm an important and valued person. So there's going to be an element of figuring out what you needed and giving that to yourself. There's going to be an element of reframing those events, that it wasn't that I'm a failure. It was that there was some shitty parenting. Someone didn't know what they were doing because they were also the child of someone who couldn't parent them properly, so they picked them up and started passing them on to me, etc., etc. So that we can reframe that, create new beliefs. Oh no, if I don't succeed at something, that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means perhaps there's a piece of information there to direct me more effectively the next time. These are hypotheticals. It doesn't mean I don't need to be perfect. I get to create my own standard, regardless of what other people think of it, right? So you get to reframe these old events, create new beliefs. With new beliefs are going to create new emotional responses. So moving forward, if failure is the example, here I failed again. Now, what have I learned about that? Not that I'm a failure, because remember, anything that comes after the words I am is an identity piece. I have to identify with it and therefore become it. So it'll keep repeating, and of course, so will that emotion until I break it. It's not that I'm a failure, it's that didn't go the way it could go. What are the lessons in it for me? Remember, failure is there to point you in a more effective direction next time, if you can remove the motion. But in order to remove that motion, might be getting back to where you originally created all that shit. You can see this stuff can take some work. But we'll come back to my first point. You can't avoid it, and just keep getting busier and I know I'm just going to be an absolute perfection and I'm going to be a success at fucking everything, and therefore that'll never happen. No, that's avoiding it. That's sweeping under the rug. Remember, you'll walk into that fucking thing and it'll shit all over your life. So face it, reflect on it, reframe it, create new beliefs, and with that will, over time and practice, come new emotional responses and new behaviors. If you don't know how to do all of that, then find someone who can support you in that. This is why it's called work. Go and do it.